Liberalism. So, liberalism is like when you say, hey dude, let people do their own thing. It's all about individual rights, freedom, and everyone getting equal treatment under the law. It popped out of the Enlightenment era when people were like, maybe kings shouldn't control everything. So now it's big on democracy, free speech, and laws that protect people from getting steamrolled. Economically, it's like, let the market run, but don't let it turn into chaos mode, so the government steps in just enough to keep things fairish. Conservatism. Okay, so conservatism is like, don't touch the system if it's not broken. It's all about keeping traditions, stability, and the stuff society has already built. It came up when everything in Europe started flipping upside down, and some people were like, maybe slow down, please. So conservatives usually want change, but like at 1% speed, not 100. Family, culture, religion, and national identity are kind of the main anchors here. Socialism. Socialism is like, why is everything so uneven though? It focuses on sharing or collectively controlling important resources so people don't get left behind. It grew during the industrial era when workers were getting absolutely cooked by bad conditions and low pay. The idea is, healthcare, education, and basic needs shouldn't depend on how rich you are, so society organizes things to make life more fair across the board. Communism. Communism is like, okay, let's go full reset button. It imagines a world with no social classes and no private ownership of big industries. Everything is shared and the goal is total equality. The idea comes from Marx and Engels, who looked at capitalism and said, this is creating too many gaps between people. In theory, it's super equal. In practice, it's been implemented in very different ways depending on where and when. Social democracy. Social democracy is like capitalism but with a safety net, please. It keeps the market economy but adds strong public systems like healthcare, education, and worker protections. It's popular in parts of Europe where the goal is basically let businesses exist but don't let people fall through the cracks, so it tries to balance efficiency with fairness. Capitalism is like, go ahead, compete, win or lose. It's based on private ownership and markets deciding prices and production. Businesses compete, people invest, and profit is the main driver. It exploded during industrialization and basically took over most of the world economy. Supporters say it pushes innovation. Critics say it can create big inequality gaps. Libertarianism is like, please stop making rules about everything. It's all about maximum personal freedom and minimum government interference. The idea is the state should only exist for basic protection like law enforcement and contracts. Everything else, let people choose for themselves. It leans hard into personal responsibility and voluntary choices. Anarchism is like, what if no one was in charge? Anarchism rejects the idea of a state or hierarchy. Instead, it imagines society running through cooperation, mutual aid, and small self-managed communities. It came from 19th century political movements and says people don't actually need centralized authority to organize their lives. Nationalism is like, this is our team and our story. It puts the nation at the center of political identity. It grew when modern countries were forming and people started identifying strongly with shared culture, language, or citizenship. Sometimes it's about unity and independence, sometimes it's about protecting national interests. Fascism is like, one strong leader, one strong state, no disagreement. It focuses on centralized power, intense national unity, and rejecting political opposition. It came out of early 20th century crises when some movements pushed extreme control to restore order. It tends to prioritize the state above individual freedoms. Environmentalism is like, hey, planet Earth is kind of important. It focuses on protecting nature, ecosystems, and long-term sustainability. It became a major movement when pollution and industrial damage started becoming obvious problems. The goal is balancing human activity with keeping the planet livable. Feminism is like, equality should include everyone, no exceptions. It focuses on gender equality and removing discrimination against women and gender minorities. It looks at how systems affect people differently based on gender. Populism is like the people versus the big powerful groups. It frames politics as a conflict between ordinary people and elites or institutions. It can appear in different political directions, but the core idea is that the system isn't listening and needs to be challenged. It often pushes for more direct representation. Monarchism is like a king or queen is still part of the system. It supports having a king or queen as head of state, either symbolic or powerful depending on the version. It comes from older political systems where leadership was hereditary. Today, it often exists in constitutional forms where the monarch's role is mostly ceremonial. Authoritarianism is like power is centered at the top, and that's that. It describes systems where political power is concentrated and opposition is limited. It can exist under different ideologies, but structurally it means less political competition and more control from a central authority. Stability and order are usually prioritized over open political debate.